A quiet space to talk about the subtle struggles hidden in daily life.
Yo, without glorifying weakness or assigning meaning, just reality.
This is a podcast where I talk calmly about struggles and family issues. Firstly, I wrote a letter to the founder, but I'm not even sure if I'm really that angry. I sent a letter to the founder, but I don't know anymore whether I'm actually that mad. Maybe I just want them to know that there are believers who suffer like this. I guess I want them to understand that some followers went through struggle like mine. I guess I want them to understand that some followers went through struggles like mine. Actually, some followers went through struggles like mine. I listened to a philosophy podcast, but it was too hard, and I gave up again. I tried listening to philosophy podcast, but it was difficult, and I failed again. I stopped aiming for perfect English, but now I don't know what to do with my mind, with my time. I thought it would be a good way to kill time. I gave up on mastering English, but now I'm stuck with nothing to do. I thought it would at least keep me occupied. Next, about the funeral of the religion I used to belong to. My relative lived difficult lives, but the explanation they gave was extremely distorted. Regarding the funeral from the religion I was in, my relative actually struggled a lot. Yet the story they told was totally twisted. They said my uncle was a strong supporter even though he rejected the religion, and that everyone was saved thanks to my grandmother. Almost my relative was saved thanks to my grandmother. They claimed my uncle was cooperative even though he refused the religion and said everyone was saved because of my grandmother. They claimed my uncle was cooperative. My uncle was cooperative even though he refused the religion. Next, and the founder saw that text added imaginary details and sent a message that was read in front of everyone. The founder read that document, added fantasy to it, and had the message read publicly. Next, I'm thinking of quitting TikTok And I'm thinking of quitting English and switching to a blog. I'm considering stopping English and moving to blogging instead. Until a few days ago, no matter how much I practice English pronunciation, if I get old or sick and can't speak, it will all be wasted. That scares me. Even if I train pronunciation now, if I lose the ability to speak when I'm older or ill, I'll mean nothing. It will mean nothing. That's worried me. Talking is the only purpose. So if I can't pronounce words anymore, it becomes meaningless. Since speaking is the whole point, losing pronunciation ability would make everything pointless. If I get sick in the future and can't pronounce words, all the practice will be wasted. That's what I'm afraid of. If illness suddenly takes away my ability to speak, all my pronunciation practice will be for nothing. And that fear stays with me. Next, I wonder whether to increase the tofu amount, change the type, change the flavor, or use chickpeas. I debated whether to add more tofu, switch varieties, change the taste, or use the chickpeas. If I use chickpeas, I wanna try other thing too. And it will get complicated. But nutritionally, it's good, so I couldn't give up. Using chickpeas would make me wanna experiment with more ingredient, which could get messy. But they are nutritious. So I couldn't let go of the idea. Next with philosophy. Why do people search for their true self? Many people should understand. Anatta. Do you know anatta? Anitta. Buddha say anatta. Why do we chase who we really are? Most people should know the idea of non-self. But people chase who we really are, their true self. Many people should understand anatta, the idea of non-self. The reason is that emotions don't understand non-self. It's because emotions don't recognize the idea of non-self. Society operates on the assumption of self. So it demands things that aren't logical. It demands things that aren't logical. Society is built on the idea of self. So it asks for things that don't make sense. It demands things that aren't logical. I feel strange. People say failing an exam is a small thing. People say failing an exam is a small thing, yet they tell examiners to work hard. Isn't that strange? They tell examiners to work hard. Isn't that strange? They say failing an exam is no big deal, but still push students to try desperately. Isn't that contradictory? I think it is contradictory. They push students to try desperately. If it's a small thing, why force them to be desperate? If it's really small, why make them struggle too hard? Whether things go well or not, the difference is actually small. People keep realizing that there are only a small difference whether things go well or not. It's problem. But for the person in the middle of it, it feels huge. But for someone going through it, it feels like a massive event. If you keep noticing that everything is small, everything starts to feel that way. When you repeatedly realize things are small, everything begins to seem significant. Everything begin to seem insignificant. Small is just a viewpoint from above. The appearance doesn't matter. Calling something small is just a bird's eye perspective. How it looks doesn't change the essence. Everything is just difference. Everything is just difference. Everything is simply variation. Everything is simply variation. It's better not to have the habit of realizing that before doing anything. It's better not to have the habit of realizing that before doing anything. It's not good to notice that kind of thing. Before starting something. Next, it happened yesterday. Normally, when my father goes out, I get off. He get off the car once. Normally, when my father goes out, I go to first floor. But yesterday, he walked, so I couldn't tell if he went out. Usually, my dad get out of the car. Yesterday, he walked, so I couldn't tell if he had gone out. Even so, she didn't tell me. Maybe she thought I'd figure it out. Maybe she thought I'd figure it out. Yet she didn't inform me. Maybe she assumed I'd notice. Even though it's proven that absolutes don't exist, religious still talk about God, and scientists, they are doing the same thing. Even with proof that nothing absolute exists. Even with proof that nothing absolute exists. And they are doing the same thing. They know there's no ultimate truth, but they try to get as close as possible. They know there's no ultimate truth, but they try to get as close as possible. They understand there's no final truth, yet they still try to approach it. But if perfection doesn't exist, they can get close to it. But if perfection is impossible, approaching it is impossible too. Some say God doesn't exist. Or does God exist only when nothing exists? People say things like God is what doesn't exist. Or God exists only when nothing else is. Others say God doesn't exist in the world and does exist. Some claim God present in the world does actually exist. Some claim God isn't present in the world that actually exists. Maybe believing in God is just deceiving yourself. Just deceiving yourself and trying to deceive others too. Believing in God might be a form of self-deception. Believing in God might be a form of self-deception and maybe even an attempt to deceive others. Some people say God is something. Some people say God is something transcendent. But if humans create the concept of God, then saying human can understand. And then saying human can understand. And then saying human can't understand. It is completely illogical. People call God a transcendent being. Yet, if the idea of God was invented by humans, claiming humans can't grasp it is nonsense. I started the podcast because I wanted to talk about my daily life, but I also strongly wanna talk about the thing I don't understand. I began podcasting to share my everyday experiences. my everyday experiences, but I also have a strong urge to talk about things I can't make sense of. I also have a strong urge to talk about things I can make sense of. But I can only focus on one thing. And the other get neglected, and the others get neglected. The problem is I can only concentrate on the one thing at a time, and so the other side get ignored. I thought about quitting English and switching, and I considered many methods and show ideas. I even though I was dropping English and moving on, and I brainstormed different approaches and program ideas. And I listened to philosophical podcasts, but they were too difficult, and I felt again losing confidence. I tried the philosophy podcast again, but they were too hard, and I gave up once more. It hurt my confidence. I wonder again whether to try chickpeas. They might not go well with tofu. I debated again whether to try chickpeas, though I wasn't sure they'd match tofu. I thought yesterday's tofu was a failure, so I didn't buy chickpeas. But she didn't buy chickpeas. But this morning, I started worrying about it again. I felt yesterday's tofu didn't. I was wondering whether to try chickpeas. I wasn't sure if they would go well with tofu. I decided not to buy. Eventually she didn't buy them yesterday because. But this morning I started wondering again. Yesterday I thought it might be a mistake, but this morning I started wondering again. I thought I should change clothes because I smelled, but maybe because of depression I had no motivation. I had no motivation and gave up. I wanted to change clothes since I smelled, but I felt too low or I felt motivated, and I ended up not doing it. The English issue, the tofu issue, and the later issue made me depressed. I sighed deeply and felt like I was losing control. I was losing control. I sighed deeply and felt like I was losing control. The problem with English, tofu, and the letter all piled up, and I felt so down. I let out a deep sigh and felt like I might break. Next, my parent was standing during the meal, and because I'm sensitive to change, I couldn't focus on eating and felt unsettled. My mother stood while eating, and since I'm weak to sudden changes, I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't concentrate on the meal and felt uneasy. Thank you for listening. Please follow this program. See you again.